Hello, everyone. I'm going to remove my mask. Is that okay with everyone? Because it's really difficult for um, to be heard. Hi, my name. Oh, I know. I forget. Hi, my name is Twan Dean. I am from a full-time faculty member here at Triton College. I am from the College Readiness Department in Mathematics. I am going to be talking today in regards to best practices in retention of our students. I am joined by my colleague, Mary, who's going to be talking and give her introduction as well too. Switch up. No, yeah, over there.
Hi, I'll take this off for just a moment. My name is Mary Elkins, and I am the chairperson for the radiography program here at Triton College. Welcome.
All right. So before we get started, everyone, I want to say that when putting together this presentation in regards to encouraging and retaining our students, it is actually some of the practices that we actually do within our classrooms. And it's probably just enhancing those things because of COVID. COVID has changed a lot of things that we're doing, especially if it's remote, especially if it is in person. And we've seen some students, and I am also a member of the Student Development Committee, which my chairperson just walked in. And we talked about why students withdraw from classes and how do we actually keep them retained in those classes. And our practices that we do within our courses may vary from person to person, but it may vary from discipline to discipline. But overall, the things that we are talking about today could help so that we don't lose our students, regardless if it's their first semester, their first generation, if there's second semester, or even their last semester. If it's a harder discipline or easy discipline, and I know I said it nicely, like some of our students say, some things are easy, and I know it's not, but nevertheless, we do these practices all the time, and like I said, we probably just want to emphasize more of what we do. But today, we're also going to be talking about maybe some of the things that you do in your classes that we have not covered. Research shows that we do a lot of things and practices in our classrooms, and some of those things in this case, yeah, they work sometimes, or they may not work sometimes. For example, in my class, for especially teaching mathematics, I do a lot of interaction. But because of COVID, I had to stop and stand back and say I couldn't do those things. So I had to shake it and approach it a different way. I used to love doing group projects, but I know some people get really skittish because they don't want to be sitting with someone or across someone without a mask. But you know, those things I love doing, I had to go back and change, but modify them in the sense that it will still keep my class encouraged and keep my class motivated. The other thing I tried, especially when we had our COVID situation online, I used to do a lot of motivations, put up motivation speeches or motivation poems or motivation sayings to keep them engaged in the classroom and infuse that in the mathematics that we talk about. It worked in some classes and it didn't work in others. But again, it's those things that we practice and those things that we try to see what we can do to retain our students. So as research is showing that there's this huge gap of our students in the classroom and then our students when they get to our classes, and saying that what they saw and what they were told in regards to the course is not what we thought or what the student thought the class would be. Those things actually are a huge factor in what students withdraw from classes, especially in the first week or in the second or in the third week. And there we go. So today we're looking at talking about some of the things that we as instructors and professionals in our fields, how can we retain our students more even after that 10-day grace period, or even after the 2 weeks, after the 6 weeks, after the semester has begun, and we are still getting those students who are not interested, those students who are still struggling to comprehend whatever we're talking about, and those students who figure that whatever we're teaching does not relate to them. So in this, I put together some of the various reasons why students withdraw from classes and why students are not retained in those courses. The biggest thing that research has shown is that insignificant information about the course. We as professionals who are teaching these courses, we know what our catalog says. We know what our course is. But sometimes the student may misinterpret the information in regards to both what is said on our syllabi, what is said in the course, and what it was told maybe by a counselor or even advisor. Not to say that anyone does anything wrong, but they just misinterpret the information. For example, a lot of students in this case who think when they come into my math literacy class, they think it's going to be this easy course because what math literacy, they think it's all about just learning what math is about. But we actually talk about the logic of mathematics, and we talk about how mathematics is used every day. We talk about how mathematics is not only used in their everyday lives, but in the fields that they're going to and how it fuses with their major. So in that, the description of the course does not match what they think what the class is going to be about. They also get this misinterpretation of what we as professionals think in our classes, what we think we're doing a good job, and we may not be. It does happen. It does happen. They have the lack of understanding, which I saw that was number 2. We see students who struggle. Instead of reaching out and trying to give them that helping hand, we just let them continuously flow into the void. And they figured if they don't care, you don't care, so no one cares, so they drop out of the classes anyway. Then we have all these other things in the sense of their personal issues, personal finances, even though we can't deal with those things, but we can sympathize and try to help in this case. We do have a wonderful business office and a wonderful financial aid office, and sometimes they just maybe need to go over there and talk to them even more. I met one student, for example, who, because of finances, they were figured that they were overwhelmed, and I took them over to the business office just to have someone talk to them about what they could do. Maybe take out a loan. I know, maybe not the first thing they want to think of, but maybe taking out payments of how to get through the semester, or maybe talking about applying for scholarships they didn't even know about. But things like that to help them to maybe keep them in our institution. I love this lack of time that students have. I know there's nothing we can actually do about that, but what we could do is maybe understand some of the things that they're going through. For example, we have students who are returning adults, who have families. Not to say that we have to change the structure of our teaching, but maybe sympathize a little bit and maybe not overwhelm them a lot. I know in my class, for example, I told them, I have colleagues who in the math department love to get 50 to 60 to 80 questions a night in a topic that we're talking about. I know, I see that look of, really, seriously, 50, 60, 70, 80 questions? Yes, I have to apologize. I do have colleagues like that. I do not feel that is necessary. So I tell them in the class, especially the first week of class, we actually negotiate exactly how many questions. I tell them, be careful what you ask for. I love when the student says, let's just have one question. Be careful what you ask for. I love that. But it gets them to talk about it so that they feel part of the class, even though truthfully it's already been designed and it's less than 30 questions. But nevertheless, it gets them to talk about it. And I tell them that I'm always modifying those things based on the class, because not every class is the same. Not every student is the same. And I'm trying to be more equitable in the classroom to understand exactly what our students are going through. So this list, like I said, is just some of the things that was highlighted in some of the research that I've conducted, and also over the years of my experience here at Triton College and teaching other places, why students are not retained in the classroom, not encouraged to stay in the classroom because we don't see those things. And some of us, I hate to say, we refuse not to see it. Because why? We're in our own world and coming in. We teach our courses. We expect students to be at college level. But do we really know, or does the student really know what college level means? We are a junior college. We're actually preparing them for the four-year institution. They may not know what that means because they're coming straight out of high school, or we have returning adults who still don't know what college level means. We just have to give them that definition. Again, another research that was conducted, I know it says 2005, but there was also our reports that's going on now, which is our Sussy Report for all of you. And in that, it talks about the #1 reasons why students withdraw from classes. The #1 is that they need a break from the study, because we feel that, and I was reading an article, that students get overwhelmed in everything that we give them. You have students who are taking multiple classes, and they just feel that they're just overwhelmed in it. And the fear, that overwhelmedness in this case says to them, don't ask for help, withdraw from the class. And yeah, we don't see that. I don't know, seeing shaking those heads saying, yeah, we see that, but we really don't, because we'll get those reports in our mailboxes and saying the student withdrew from the class, and we really don't know what was going on. But as research said, it is the #1 reason that it does happen. Continuing on. So in higher education, for all of you, we look at 3 important things. We look at encouragement, we look at, engagement, we look at improvement and integrity of looking at and how we help our students. These 3 important things that I've discovered over the years, and not only talking to my colleagues in other disciplines and going to other seminars and workshops and conferences to talk about it, it is all these things that we infuse in the classroom that we should not only look at, but understand as well too. Engaging our students, I know, some of us right now, we look at across the room in this ocean of academia that we do engage our students, but we engage them in the sense of what we're doing in the classroom. But engagement also part of the community, is also part of our institution, it's part of the classroom, it's part of the students, it's part of our body, it's part of everything that we do. Engagement is just not part of the academic subject that we're teaching. It's part of everything. And sometimes that engagement is maybe a simple, how you doing today? Especially with the article that came out in the Chronicle of National Education, and it came out in September of this year. It said that engagement, because of the COVID, we now have to engage our students even more because sometimes they feel disconnected. They've been at home all along for a whole year. Now they're returning back to the institution. They may not know how to engage with others. And it is frightening to say that happens, but we do have that, especially when you have seniors in their first year, their senior year in high school. That's all they did was online education. Now they're going to the college level, now they have to engage into our classes. And we may not know what that means. The definition of engagement may vary from person to person, but in our classrooms, we want to maybe define what that means to our students. Oops.
Oh, this is my part?
This is your part.
This is my part. So I did a poll. I polled some of the my health careers colleagues to see how some of the ways that they engaged with their students or created higher engagement, and some of the ways that they tried to retain their students in their classes. So this was from one of my colleagues that if a student scores below the accepted level of a passing grade, that he allows them to retake the test and takes 10% off of that. However, they do get the chance to review and retake the test again. One of my colleagues uses Kahoot. Have you heard of Kahoot before? Yeah, it's a polling app, right? It's a polling app where students can use their phones or use their computers to answer questions, and then they actually have scoring. Everybody puts in their name, their username, and they do scoring and see who gets the highest score, who can answer the question the best, or if they're working in a group of students, which group scores the highest. And then she may, give them a candy bar or something, something a little. However, I have to say, they love seeing the little trophies that come up for the first, second, and third place winners at the end of the game. Another colleague has the students create quizzes based on the material that they then have another student take the quiz, so that they're seeing those questions in a different way based on how that person writes their questions. Student-led lectures and discussions. Let the student lead that lecture for the day and see what they bring to that discussion in the classroom. Field trips. One of my colleagues, she's over the ophthalmic technology program. She will take her students to the ophthalmic lab and let them actually see the eyes and work with the equipment. One of the things that I actually do with my patient care students is I utilize up on the second floor of the health building, the H building, the sim lab. the simulation lab that the nursing and medical assisting students all use. So my students will go up there now, and so from the beginning, this is their first semester, they learn how to move the beds up and down, how to read the different icons so that they know head up, foot up, learn how to move the patient safely, learn how to communicate with the patient safely, take blood pressure. So it's something that we started this year, and it really does enhance the course. So retention, emails. Email them regularly, email them right away when an issue arises so that they can get that remediation that they need, whether it be with a tutor or a counselor, advisor, whomever.
I have to say, for all of you, when we were talking about this email, I actually email my students every week. It's a lot of work, I know, and I laugh because this will work for me. But I do email them every week, and I want them to know that I do care about what's going on. And within the email, for me, it's always a nice, warm greeting, and then a closing that gives them encouragement for the next class.
You do it individually, or?
I do it individually on Mondays. On Fridays, it goes out as a mass email for all students.
I do something similar, really not an email, but an announcement in Blackboard. My announcement, which is pretty lengthy. I do the same thing that you do with either a quote or a video about whatever the topic is, or just encouragement. Just encouragement. Those students that have done really well on their exam, especially the students that get 100%, I will email them as soon as the class is over, because I usually have a little bit of a gap. I'll immediately email them, let them know, wow, good job, really, I just want you to know that I think you're doing a great job. Or those students that maybe they've not been doing very well, and all of a sudden they have a superior assignment, or they've done great on a quiz or an exam, I'll say, wow, you're doing so much better. I'm so glad to see that your grades are going up. And that's pretty much the rest of it. Immediate feedback, emails, encouragement, all of that. I actually do sometimes group activities within the classroom to engage the students. I let them use their laptops, I let them use their phones to research some of the material that we're talking about, and then they present to the class their portion of what it was that they were researching.
I have a secretary in my class. Each class,
you've talked about that.
I've talked about it a lot.
I love it.
Each class, a secretary is selected. This semester, and I think it's been extraordinary, because in my evening class on Mondays and Wednesdays, one of my students got together and actually created a sword. It's not a real sword, but when they are appointed as secretary, the engagement in this case is that they say, whatever saying, you are now secretary, I grant you all wishes and commitments, whatever the instructor is going to give today. I tell them that the secretary's position is never the same. So it's my way of retaining my students, because they get part of the class. So they get to choose points if we're doing some type of activity. They get to choose whatever points that's going to be given to the class, or they can keep it to themselves. 99.9% is actually given to the class. But the secretary's position is never the same. Some days the secretary will call the individuals up to the board. I tell my students we're polite and etiquette. If you decide you don't want to, just say, I kindly decline. It has been at the beginning of the semester. One of the things that my secretary did on the last class is that we, in designing the quiz, I told them that we were having a quiz. They're actually the ones who decided on the number of questions based on a collective group, and they decided if it was going to be multiple choice or fill in the blank. The quiz was all decided by the students themselves, but the secretary was the only one to give me the written instructions of what the quiz was going to be about.
I do something, I don't do a secretary every week, but with the group, whenever we have group projects or group activities, there's always a leader. There's always a group leader, and that group leader is the one that makes sure that all of the students are doing their part. Everybody has equal work, that everybody is engaged, and they are the ones that actually talk about their findings, their research, and they're the ones that present.
Yes, it didn't work in every class this semester. Right now, my afternoon class on Mondays and Wednesdays, yeah, I had to do something different. But in the other courses,
You keep the same secretary also?
no, it's always changed. Every class.
Every class.
Every class. It gives everyone an opportunity to be secretary. So there's days where, let's say for you, for example, you're the secretary for Monday's class, but then Wednesday's class, you would dub our colleague over there as secretary. Then Wednesday's class, she's over the weekend, she has a sword. In this case, I love the evening class, but they created a sword. Not a real one, not a real one. But then you become the secretary for the next class. So every job is never going to be the same, and everyone gets an opportunity to have a voice in the classroom.
Makes them feel special. Makes them feel special. So, some comments from colleagues. Obviously, we want their first year experience to be a good experience, to be a positive experience. So working with them in that first year. And for our program, for the radiography program, for the health careers program, that would be the first semester because they have 5 semesters that they're working through the program. So we want them to start off strong on the first foot. Obviously, understanding your students, try to understand your students, find a way. One thing that I do is on my attendance list, I will put next to their name, like our first day of class is an icebreaker and everybody gets to know each other. I'll put next to their name just something special about them that I can remember, and maybe as the semester goes on, maybe kind of add to that. Kind of helps me understand them a little bit better. I don't say that I 100% understand them, because when you have 36 students, sometimes that's hard. I don't know how many students you have in your class. You have a lot more than that. Okay.
7 classes.
but I mean, like in each class?
23.
Yeah, but still, that's a lot. So it's a lot. So, it takes a little bit of work on our part to do that.
It does take a little work. One of the things that I've learned as retaining students is the last statement that I actually put up there: learn your student's name and learn something about their background. I've learned that some of my students, in this case, when I've learned a little bit about them, it helps me to understand what they're going through. But then also they feel a connection in the classroom as well too, especially when we have discussions about why they're taking the class, what their majors are, and what do they expect out of the class. And now they see someone else in the same classroom, and they see that there's someone else that maybe could connect with them, so they don't feel left out and alone. And a lot of times, especially in my discipline for mathematics, a lot of students, I always tease that this is the most favorite class of all on campus, but I know it's not. It's always the hardest one. But you try to find some humor in it, but you also find some emotional connection with the students so that they understand that it's not going to be hard, it's only you that make it hard. But again, those words coming from an educator is nothing to a student when they're sitting in the seat thinking, yeah, you already got a degree. So sometimes I actually make mistakes on the board. And I've learned that from a colleague who's no longer here, who retired. He used to do that in the classroom and tell students he did that on purpose. And he actually did. He said he made mistakes on purpose to keep them engaged in the classroom, but to also find out from someone else what they're doing and how they did the problem. And I was like, I'm going to do that too.
I like it. And too, to piggyback on that, don't you find too that they're more likely to approach you? That makes you more approachable whenever you've kind of created that little bit of connection with them. They're more likely to come and talk to you if they have an issue or if they need something.
They do.
I'm not saying everyone, but some people, that kind of opens the door for them.
It does. And I also do, like another colleague said, I encourage them to come in my office in this case too, especially when I see a student that looks like he or she is struggling. I don't put them in the spotlight, and I ask them, I just put a little note, maybe a post-it on their exam or something saying, please see me after class so we can talk about what's going on. I don't want them to feel that they've been abandoned in this case. So I try to do those little things. And I know with the emails, it's a lot individually. I know it's a lot, but I think for every semester, I try to do something different. Especially since we now are using Blackboard, I do a lot of posting in Blackboard as well too. But it's a lot of things to try to help them understand that they're not out there by themselves. I understand what they're going through. I even give them a little bit about my cultural and background, even though math was not a really difficult subject for me, but I embellished just a little bit so that I could keep them in the classroom. But just help them to understand that I do understand what they're going through in this case.
And it helps, my background, I mean, obviously, is radiography. I have to have it to be able to teach what I'm teaching. And I have many 30+ years of stories that I share with them, real life experiences. And even I've honestly told them, I said the 2 years that I was in the program, I had a stomachache for 2 years. It's a hard program. It's difficult. So I do understand what you're going through. I really do. So I think that helps.
I shared with them like the instructor I had. She was mean as hell.
But you have to share those things too.
She was. So at this time, I actually do say that to them. She was very mean. She hated any type of student. She didn't care what level you were. She just hated students, period. And at this time, you think, why was she an educator? I couldn't even answer that question. I really couldn't. But I use that as an example in the classroom and saying I had an instructor. I would say every day, she would call us by number. She never called us by names. Never. The entire semester, we all had a number.
What level were you at?
This was in my junior year in college.
How long?
Just a number.
We were just a number. I hate to tell my students it was, advanced calculus 4, but we had a number, and she was like, you raise your hand. She's like, yes, number 16. I can remember my number. I'm Twan. What did you just do? But a lot of students at the time would drop out of class, but they really did feel connected with her, and she was not a very approachable person. She really wasn't. I think when we started, we probably had 20+ students, but when we ended, there was only 6 of us altogether.
So you should get a cape and like golden staff that you said I the witch.
Well, if I'm going to be truthful, I would have put that golden star somewhere else.
I know.
Not on her head.
Not on her head. So at this time, we want to see or discuss maybe some of the things that you're doing in your classes to retain your students. Also, maybe encourage them to continue, even though it is, we're in week 10 now, but to encourage them to keep going in this case. I know you have something for this. You always do something fantastic in your class.
Oh, you don't know that. But I learned this. Were you here when Joe Beth was the head of the program? Okay, so she taught me this. So when we start class, and I'm bad with names. I tell them it takes me a long time. And right now I have 3 Jesuses, and 2 of them, their last names are Resendez and Rivera. Mess them up all the time. But every student introduces themselves. What high school did you go to, or did you transfer? What are you studying? And then something unique about yourself that sets you apart from everybody else. So I've learned that people are pilots, that they're triplets, that they're, triracial, or, it's kind of interesting.
I had a semester where I had 5 Marias. 2 of them were just named Maria. The other 3 were Marias, and 2 of them had the same last name, and they were both in the same class.
Yeah. That's very interesting.
Do you know one thing that I did, and this was totally COVID related, is I created a graph for each of my classes. And I told the students, I said, I want you to stay in the same seats. I mean, just for in case we need to contact trace or something. So I have that graph, and that helps me learn their names because I look at it. And every class I'm looking out to see who's there and who's not. Helps me remember their names. I need it.
But I find that they never move after the first day.
Right.
So what I did yesterday in my class, I'm like, everybody who's against the window, step out here. Everybody who's against the aisle, move to the window. And then I moved them all around. So they weren't sitting near anybody else. been sitting next to before. But introduce yourself. Because what I found was I had a pocket in the back corner was doing really, really bad.
You know what, yes, I've done that before too, because you just, it's like, no, you need to have a different seating partner.
Yeah, you need a different influence in your life.
Well, that's where in my classroom, when we do activities, if we're doing like a group activity, the secretary is the one who actually assigns, because they still don't know each other. And for me to learn their names, I always use their names in scenarios. So if I'm doing a problem, I say, for example, Jesus was trying to do it this way, and I'll see Jesus sitting there. I didn't say that, but in their head, they was like, "Oh my God, I was thinking of that." And then they'll come out to class and say, "I was thinking it. How'd you know?" Yeah, just use your name in the scenario, just to do it. I would do that. I never tried switching or anything, because usually I let the
It's not
secretary
just
see.
switching, it's over, and then I flipped them, so that it took me a while to figure out how I get
Shaking the
these
blanket.
5 broken out.
Right, yeah. That's why I let the secretary do it, because I don't want anyone to think I know exactly who should be with.
No, I told them at the beginning of the semester I was gonna move them in.
Oh,
Good point.
see, that's good, because they know in advance that happens, rather than, like one colleague tried something in the middle of the semester and it didn't work because they didn't know, because they weren't told at the beginning of the semester they were going to be doing something like that. So I remember she had a class of 23, she was down to 2.
Oh my.
Yeah, my chair was not happy about that. But she was doing things that she didn't tell them in the beginning that this was going to happen. She just like, "Oh, okay, this day I'm gonna do this," and the student was like, I don't feel comfortable in doing that." So you didn't introduce what you were trying to do or what the class was going to be structured like. You're doing it as the class was going, and that's why so many students dropped out of the class.
Yeah, many students need consistency, and if we don't tell them in advance, and they, like my daughter, she would follow, but I have to every day feed her a bit of information and prepare her to the change. And then by the time the change happens, she's happy. If I say, "Yeah, let's do it," she freaks out, totally loses, and she's sophomore in high school. So with the students and the name, I'm huge on that. I start with giving them a card stack, so they make
On
a
your desk,
group.
a
Yeah.
tent.
And I ask them to put the name they want me to call them. So if it's a nickname or if I have a lots of students that use their middle name as their main name. So that's what they have it. And before COVID, I would collect them at each class so that I can give them and learn that way. During COVID, I just said, keep it and make sure you bring it out. And as they walk into the classroom, I always greet them, check their smiley face, and I try to guess the name. And I say, before you take your name tag, let me figure out. And this way,
It's a great way to connect, I know.
Yeah.
I really
and
like that.
then it's different because even on a hallway, when I secret them and address them with their first name, there is this moment like, holy cow, actually someone knows it,
True.
So that's the thing.
And you're right, that is one of several best practices in retaining students, not only retaining and encouraging students, but also getting students integrated into your course, because they feel that they have a connection, because now my scenario with my teacher, you know by number, but knowing by name and seeing them outside of the classroom and calling them as well too. I've learned that, especially over several times, that students love that, and they feel that they are connecting and you see them rather than just in the classroom and see them in this case.
And the other thing I also do, which kind of relates to what you said, when the student is struggling, I pull them out of the class, or I give them an out to see me after the class, or casually leave the room, which sometimes I do it anyway to get some stuff from the lab. And the students follows me, and then I have the conversation with them. Since I'm adjunct, I don't have privilege of having office, so I try to find a quieter place. And I try to then do executive function things like what really stops you from doing it. And then you discover they actually work full time on top of 15-hour credit hours, on top of taking care of grandma or younger sibling and stuff like that. And then you are, okay, so where can we work? How can I change the due dates to fit your schedule? And also writing it all down, you know. This is your time. If you think on Saturday night you can spend time with your friends, forget about it for next 17 weeks. Because with your work, with your commitment, that's your study time. And they are like, oh,
What do you teach?
you're right. I'm a mechanical engineer, so I teach graphic design and AutoCAD, introduction to manufacturing.
Oh, with them.
Yeah, with engineering, yeah.
You know, another thing that I've done now that you're talking about changing due dates and stuff like that. With some of my students, the only time that they can work in the program is on the weekends because our radiography schedule is so, you know, it's Monday through Friday with their clinical internship. So I will ask them, you know, whenever I'm going to have an online test posted, I will ask them what's, you know, somebody tell me who works, what are best times for you? Is it best Friday through Sunday? Sunday through Tuesday, whatever, and I try to make sure that everybody is going to be able to have time to not only review but to be able to take their test that fits into their schedule because it is different. Everybody doesn't work, but some people do and they have to, or take care of parents, as you said.
How about you?
Oh, well, I teach, I teach GED classes, so GED math, and that's a big challenge because the students have had a lack of success in school prior, right? That's why they're in the program that they're in. And I think that they need just so much support, so much support. So I agree that the emails means a lot. And I'm in a late start class, so it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday mornings, and it's online. So that's a whole other challenge to building community. But I have found that if I let them talk, you know, sometimes I don't like empty space, and I feel like I should fill it. But I've learned to like hold back. So if I pose a question or something and I just wait, people will speak up, and they can really support each other in a way that I cannot. You know, I just had this morning, I think, people saying, you know, it sounds like you have really made a lot of good, you've done had a lot of success so far in this math. Now, if we looked at where they are in math, to us it seems very, very low. To them, it is not very, very low. Every step is huge for them. And I remember once, many semesters ago, I had a student who came in, it was at the end of class, and she had like somewhat sporadic attendance, but she said to me, you know, I made it through this class and I can't believe I did it because every day before I came to class, my mom would say to me, I cannot believe you're going to class. You'll never get through this. You never got through it before. You're not going to get through it now. Now, can you imagine what that's like to carry that baggage and be trying to get your GED?
I can because I was told that every day.
Yeah, none of us had that because, you know, we obviously were well educated, so we had a lot of family support. But I just have to recognize often, well, not always, but for the most part, you know, I have to recognize that these people really need a lot of
That's wonderful that you recognize that.
Absolutely. So that's what I've learned, and I appreciate all the tips that we've heard. You know, thank you.
Thank you, Sergio.
I just try to stay as positive as I can. I teach criminal justice. It's very difficult, period, for the criminal justice field now, where people are leaving, and I have to stay as positive as I can to keep people interested. So I bring in personal experiences. They'll ask me, what did you do? What did you see? How did you do that? The average person has no knowledge of the criminal justice field. They just know they want to get in it. So I will bring in stories that I have done, you know, things that I've done. I'll go and bring videos in from instances that just happened recently, and I'll put it on the board, let them see it, and ask them their opinion. What do you think? What do you see? Can you do this? I just try to be as positive as I can. I can't do anything else for them but to be positive, because they're looking to me to find out, is this the field that I should be in, or should I look into something else? So I have to keep telling them, no, this is a great field to be in. It may not be for everyone, but you have to find out what you're good at.
And your real stories, your real life stories are something that that they need to hear to be able to make that decision for themselves. Sure, that's wonderful.
You in fact do one of the other best practices in teaching. You actually bring in real world experience. You also bring in real world that's related to the student and also to the discipline. That's what I'm saying. We all do these best practices, and we don't realize how it can make a huge impact on our students. I'm given the time that our time is almost up. But on our conclusion, for all of you, here's some things that, like we all discussed, there were some additional things that we as professors and educators can be focusing on. Use the combination of all these things that we've learned and also things that we do in our classrooms to motivate our students, not only to retain them, but to keep them encouraged in the classroom. Also identify them by just not by name, but culture as well too. We're also looking at changing some of the methodologies of how we teach our classes, even though not changing the structure of the course, but maybe the approaches of how we do it. So for example, if we know that students are struggling, maybe not give so many questions, maybe on the next quiz or an assignment or something like that. Identify some of the challenges within the classroom as well too, that maybe would change the behavior of how the student approaches looking at the discipline and also looking at the course itself. We also want to look at maybe creating some projects and assignments, like you were saying, Francis, so maybe moving around the classrooms as well too, and get them to know each other a little bit. Encourage students to work with other classmates. Sometimes that could be better. And you said it best, that sometimes that conversation that they're having can maybe help them to identify someone else is going through the same thing. Hey, I can relate to them. Using to create this learning opportunity for your students to collaborate with each other as well too, and demonstrate the relevance of, like our colleague is saying, what the field that they're in and how it relates to them as the student, but also as it relates to us as so we're teaching our discipline. At this time, I want to thank all of you, and I thank my co-presenter as well too, Mary. At this time, thank you all of you. I hope that this was educational. As I tell my students, education is full of wealth, full of knowledge, but full of power, and we're all Supermans and Wonder Womans. Thank you so much, everyone.